$100 startup. I have already discussed about the first chapter. It's about the introduction, about the basic ideas to how to start a $100 startup. And the second thing which we are going to discuss about here is how to franchise yourself. In this, we are going to see about the instructions on cloning yourself for fun and profit. And you can see the quotation over here is I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. So it's a statement. So you can see over here, as business model goes, buying a franchise that is based on someone else's company is usually a bad idea. The basic buy our franchise pitch runs like this. Raise $250,000 by withdrawing your life savings, borrowing from family members, and maxing out your credit cards. Pay most of that money upfront to a company that will generously allow you to work for it. Operate the business precisely the way they tell you, with no exceptions allowed. Every decision from whom you hire to what services you offer to where you locate your store is made by the company. They will even tell you what color shirt you are required to wear in your own business. If the business succeeds, you will make an average of $47,000 a year after scraping by for 3 years on the same 50 hours work weeks you could spend at someone else's company with a lot less stress. In the winning scenario, your ultimate success won't be that you started a business, you will have bought yourself a job. If the business fails, which happens more often than most franchise companies want to admit, the company will take back the store from you and resell it to someone else. When they do this, they won't count your failure as a store closer in their statistics. Thus, when you hear statistics that suggest a high percentage of franchise locations remain open, you have no idea who is operating them and who owes $250,000 that they have no way to repay. How does that proposal sound to you? Probably not so great, which is why buying into someone else's operation is not usually the opportunity to see it. It may seem from the outside, thankfully, there's an alternative building a real business of your own, something that something that you have ownership of and control over. Buying into someone else's franchise is not usually a good idea, but figuring out how to leverage your own efforts is almost always worth careful consideration. You're only one person or maybe two. Who says you can't be in more than one place at one time? In fact, there are several ways to grow a business through the use of leverage. Franchising yourself is not just doing more, it's about talking your skills, activities, passions to a higher level to create better returns. The difference between franchising yourself and just doing more is that you take the time to be strategic. Let's look at a couple of examples. Nathaniel Leeson was an upcoming software engineer originally from QB. She had interned in Silicon Valley and had the chance to take a big job on Wall Street. Her family said it was the job of her dreams, but as Natalie thought more about it, she realized it was the job of someone else's dream. Turning down the offer, she returned to Canada and decided to pursue a different idea. Natalie had a personal success story of dramatically improving her health after switching to a raw food diet, eating only fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Sounded crazy at first, but the results spoke for themselves. In the first month, she lost more than 10 pounds and suddenly had energy throughout the days. As she talked with her friends, Natalie was a natural evangelist, not pushy or judgmental, but offering tips and strategies that people could use to make real improvements even if they were not ready to jump into a completely raw diet as Nathalie's had done. After relocating to Toronto, the idea was to build a small business, helping other people make the adjustment to raw foods. Being a software engineer and a self-described geek like Brett Kelly, so Nathalie programmed a database, set up an app, and built her own website. The first incarnation was Raw Food Switch, which correctly represented the concept but seemed a bit boring. One day, Nathalie noticed that the same letter and therefore the same website could be rendered as raw food, which leading to a new theme, dressing in character with a pointed black hat for photo shoots. She rebranded the whole business around herself. Natalie created programs, one-time products, and individual consultation sessions in the same way we have seen others do throughout the books. Raw Foods, which grew into a $60,000 business after the first year. What's not to love? Just one thing. From the outside, she told me at a vegetarian restaurant in Toronto, it looked like all I talked about was raw food. No one realized I had done all the programming and really enjoyed the intersection of business and technology. The second business came out unexpectedly after Nestle began getting tech inquiry from her raw foods clients who were also creating business. She decided to create a separate brand of tech consulting operating under her own name instead of the moniker she used in the other business. Raw Food, which is still a powerful brand, friends and the clients report that other shoppers have mentioned her in the grocery store when they see a cart full of avocados, but she restructured the business to run on 80% autopilot. It still brings in a good income, but now Natalie spreads her time building the second business instead of doing one or the other. Natalie effectively franchised herself. After Natalie set up the tech consultancy, she had to go back to the raw food business and make some changes. The business had always been dependent on new products and launches, and since her focus was now elsewhere, she had to reduce the dependency while ensuring that it would produce income on a more regular basis. Across the border and a few states away, Brooke Thomas founded New Haven Rolfing, a holistic health practices. The clinic attracts a clearly defined groups of clients, people who wants to address chronic pain and mobility problem. No one comes to see Brooke when they are feeling great. By the time, by the time they arrive at New Haven Rolfing, how many gone through a long list of other treatments that haven't helped? Brooke is a testimony to the treatments she provides. She became pain-free through Rolfing after 23 years, having lived her whole life to that point with problems related to a birth injury. Before she moved to Connecticut, Brooke operated similar business in California and New York. With each move, she learned a little more about what to do and what to avoid. Opening the same kind of business in different cities was insightful. After moving to New Haven, she filled her client list within 4 weeks, and then she took on a partner to manage additional appointments. A single mother with a young child, Brooke works part-time but still earns more than $70,000 a year from the practice. Repeated successes in different cities involved getting to know other care providers, and Brooke noticed that some were more businesses savvy than others. By using her real world experience, Brooke created practice Abundance, a training program for other wellness providers, offering a series of support modules and a community forum. Practice Abundance was a business course that focused strictly on ways to improve a practice. Other resources took a very traditional approach. In Brooke words, they assume that everyone wants to get an MBA when the reality is that most of them just want to run their practice better. Brooke had diversified to two groups of people. those she served through individual care, and her fellow caregivers who could benefit from non-MBA business advice. Both Natalie and Brooke found a way to reach two different audiences, a core group and a related group. As a business grows and the business owners begins itching for a new project, he or she essentially has two options for self-made franchising. Option one, reach more people with the same message. Option two, reach different people with a new message. Either option is valid and both can be rewarding. For the first option, it may help to think of the hub and spoke model when building a brand, especially online. In this model, the hub is your main website, often an e-commerce site where something is sold, but it could also be a blog, a community forum, or something else. The hub is a home base with all the content curated by you or your team and ultimately where you hope to drive new visitors, prospects, and customers. The spokes, also known as outposts, are all the other places where you spend your time. These places could include the social networking site, the comment section of your blog and other blogs, actually meeting or networking events or something else. You can see how this works in the image below. You can see there is a hub and the interconnected nodes with it, hub and the spoke models. The goal for each of the outspot is to support the work of the home base, not usually the outpost itself. It can be a trap to spend too much time with any of the outspot because things change. Some outposts became less popular over time. You also can own the content and work you create in the home base, where most of what happens is an outspot is owned by another company. Now coming to the disaster and recovery, stuck in a Mali things. As a full-time freelance photographer based in Accra, Ghana, and the Niani, Kremlin is no stranger to adventure in West Africa. There are the few laws that are widely followed, especially when it comes to copyright and intellectual property. Most of the time, everything works out, but not always. Here's how Niani tells the story. When I was just starting out, I sought a couple of small jobs for a Ghanaian creative agency. Shortly thereafter, I got a call from them asking if I could do an urgent shoot for a new client, necessitating travel to a couple of countries in the region. The deadline was really tight. It was a get the call today and leave in the morning kind of things. And even the details of exactly where we would be going remained in flux until the last minutes happened sought for the agency before they had seen and signed my contract previously, and I made the mistake of thinking they understood how I work and the basis on which I was understanding this job. So in the rush I omitted to get the paperwork squared away and off we went. The suit went really well, and I produced what I considered to be some very strong work. All was well until we were on a rural road far from any city or airport. While we were driving along, the client demanded copyright of the images, not part of the deal as far as I was concerned, and threatened to have me detained at a remote border in a potentially unstable nation unless I handed them over. Not wanting to sample the hospitality of the local gardeners, I conceded and lost some of the strongest images I had sought to date. I learned my lesson though. Next time, be sure to get the paperwork done first. One path to franchising yourself is to team up with a trusted partner. This does not mean you completely merge your business with that person. In fact, the easiest and most common way to partner with someone is to create a joint venture. In this arrangement, two or more people join forces to collaborate on a single new project. Carol and Adams' fire sale project described is a is a joint venture. In other arrangements, all new businesses is created that is jointly owned by the partners. That's what the Patricks and the Macrons and the Rich Strauss did. They were both high-end performance coaches for athletes and decided to team up, create the endurance nations or training programs and community for the triathletes. They divide responsibilities on the basis of what they are each good at. Patrick's called all the new members on the phone to welcome them and Rich crafts an online training plan for them. However, its structure, the goal of a partnership is to grow beyond what each person can create on his on her own. Ralph Hegel-Branded operates an international professional services firm based in the Stuttgart, Germany. Here's how he explains why 1 plus 1 can equal 3. My rule of thumb is that a successful partnership or any type of collaboration should create a combined business what is at least 33% larger than the sum of what the two individuals could achieve on their own. People are often inclined to think that distributing work to a few others is what partnership is about, Ralph continued, but that is just subcontracting. True partnership must create more than just a divided list of tasks. Courtesy of the Pamela Slims, a coach and the authors and expert of partnership, here's an abbreviated list of decisions you should make at the beginning of any joint venture. How will the money be divided? Common splits includes an even 50-50, 60-40, with the higher share going to the partner who does more work, and 45-45 with 10% reserved for administration cost. What are the responsibility of each partner? What kind of information is shared between partners? How will the project be jointly marketed? How long will our agreement be in place? How often we will we touch base to discuss the partnership? Check out the one-page partnership agreement for a simple way to spell out basic agreements between two parties. One page partnership agreement, what does it say is this: keeping it simple. Remember that the relationship is the most important part. Choosing to keep it strong and trusting is more important than having the right clauses and legal languages. Many of our subjects report doing businesses for a large amount of money on a long-term basis without any contracts at all. Here's a starting point. You should consult a qualified third party if you would like to define your obligations more clearly or if you are concerned about something. Partners 1 and Partners 2. These partners agree to collaborate in good faith on a mutually beneficial project known as project team. Overview summary of project including the outcomes and the expected results, and revenue sharing. Net income for the project will be split on the basis of percent percent to partner 1 and percentage partner to partner 2. All minor costs associated with the project will be deducted prior to calculating net income. If any particular cost exceeds both partners and must approve the decision. Life of revenue sharing agreement. The revenue sharing agreement will last for a period of time at the end of which the partner will decide if it should be continued, discontinued or revised. Publication and sales. The project will be offered for sale on websites and any other sources. Customer support. The partner one will be responsible for duties. Partner two will be responsible for duties, and project feedback from customer will be shared between both parties. Marketing. Both parties will actively market the project to ensure its success. This will include the promotion on website through each partner's online community and offline network, and each party requesting coverage of the project from the other influential website. Timeline. The partners agree to complete all aspects of the project to prepare for launch on date. Now, the problem arises is this: the battle of outsourcing. Zamla Tazewell and followed the common path after graduating from art school. She waited tables in New York City while dreaming of something else. Fortunately, waiting on tables was the only waiting she did. He also took action to start a business. He started by making outlandish handbags and unique wallets. I was convinced I would magically become an accessories star overnight. She says, initially assuming that a fashion house would see her products and offer to distribute. Zamila headed west to Los Angeles to sell her accessories full-time without relying on a waitress jobs to pay the bills this time. It worked, but only just barely. She did everything herself, and the business struggled to find its feet. She was glad she no longer waited tables, but as with buying someone else's franchise, Zamila felt like she bought herself a job. 3 years in, Zamila was ready to make a change. She hired a local seamstress to make the product under her supervision, a move she described as challenging but necessary. After that, she brought in someone to do the printing and shipping as well. This was a big step that required a brutal process of trial and error, but getting the product out of my home office was incredibly liberating. It felt like my childhood was finally old enough to go off to boarding school or something. Interestingly, this perspective is not universally accepted. There are there are several others other interesting facts are there to implement on. So this is about the how to the topic about how to franchise yourself. Hope this will be helpful for you. Thank you.